Okay, next item, well, before we go into the public hearing, I wanted to give a moment for council member from the city of Belmont, Doug Kim. He's running for the Bay Area Air Quality Control District. Is that what it's called?
Area Air Quality
Yeah,
District.
UMD.
I think I'm mixing the water
called
and
BACMed.
anyways. So, Doug, why don't you come on up and chat for a couple minutes and tell us why you're running for the position and why we should support you.
Yeah, my apologies for interrupting your flow here. Congratulations to the council on a busy year. Yeah, air quality is a unique thing. It's a little, we all want to control it, but it is sort of a unique discipline. I'm here because I just wanted to make my case that I think I can represent Brisbane's concerns on the Air Quality Board for three reasons. First is I am an air quality expert. I've been working in the area of air quality for 25 years. I've worked for 2 air pollution control districts. I've worked in almost every department that deals with air quality control. So whether it's developing an air quality master plan, whether it's developing specific control measures to reduce pollution, implementing regulations, environmentally clearing projects, and technical analysis. I'm actually an air quality consultant, so people pay me to do air quality policy and analysis. The second reason is that I actually have a history of working with cities. So in Southern California, where when I was younger, I represented 2 members of the Air Quality Board as their technical consultant. My job was to represent 61 local cities and be their conduit. So when they had an air quality issue, they came to me as a resource and I would help them with technical or policy issues. But then more importantly, if there was a local issue that had to be advocated for on the Air Quality Board, I worked with my 2 electeds at different times to make sure that their interests were represented. So I can be not only a technical resource and a policy resource, but I can actually be the first person your advocate for air quality issues. And so I think for those 2 reasons, I think I can be an effective advocate for you all because I've actually done this kind of work. And it's not a side hobby for me. This is sort of what I do. And it is a unique discipline, a little bit different than other sort of policy areas. And so I'm just here to say that I would love your consideration. And regardless of what happens, if I get on the Air Quality Board, I'm committed to representing Belmont's interests. I'm happy to come once a year on a regular basis to sort of report to you what's going on. I'm happy to represent and provide you with whatever support the council wants. So appreciate the time and consideration.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, good luck. All right, so moving on to public hearing. Consider introduction of ordinance number 613 to amend the Brisbane Municipal Code, Title 15. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Every 3 years, a new set of construction codes is published by the state, and local adoption of the codes allows the city to enforce them under the authority of our municipal code and to adopt local modifications. We're in a cycle that takes effect in January of 2017, so we're asking you to introduce the ordinance that's before you tonight. I'll briefly touch on some of the local modifications. The fire code, there's historically been local modifications for requiring sprinklers, fire access improvements, storage of combustibles, etc. There are some additional local fire amendments that are proposed. They're listed on page 3 of the staff report, related primarily to access, fire access to buildings and structures. And so those are laid out there. There's also another amendment that helps define the thresholds for when a building alteration or modification triggers upgrades to health and safety standards such as sprinklers or road improvements. And that's an amendment to section 1544080. I'll just touch on some of the other modifications as well. There was an out-of-date reference to seismic codes, so there's an amendment to eliminate that out-of-date reference. Under local water use, the city has both outdoor and indoor water conservation ordinances that were locally adopted. the indoor code, which was based on a 2010 model ordinance adopted by Bauska and recommended that we adopted in 2010, has now been superseded by the state requirements. So we're proposing the deletion of our ordinance because it's less water conserving than the state ordinance right now. So there you see some modifications to that. Outdoor water use, the city's ordinance is still more restrictive than the state's, so we're recommending that be retained. There are also some requirements to amend our waste diversion requirements. In certain ways, the city's requirements are more restrictive than the state, and we would maintain those. In others, though, the state has become more restrictive or stringent, so we're modifying the ordinance to bring our local ordinance into compliance with state requirements. Last one I want to touch on is local energy conservation and generation. We're proposing a local code amendment to the draft ordinance this year to add generation conservation provisions. This would include requirements for cool roofs, which are basically to improve solar reflectance and reduce the amount of heat that gets absorbed into low-pitched roofs or structures with low-pitched roofs, because you typically don't have the space in the attic for insulation. So by having these cool roof provisions, you can actually reduce the cooling and costs, energy costs associated with those kind of structures. And the other provision was to require a fairly modest solar installations on all new structures in Brisbane. So that would be from single-family residences on up. And again, that's a local modification. It's based on provisions that have been adopted by the city of San Mateo. A couple of reasons. One, it was fairly easy to enforce and implement. It's not very rigorous on the part of the applicants. A lot of additional technical work to be done. So I think it is fairly easy to implement. Also, to adopt these kind of local modifications, the jurisdiction has to adopt the cost effectiveness study. In our case, San Mateo already has prepared a cost effectiveness study, and it's been adopted by the state of California, so we can use their cost effectiveness study for our own local provisions. The solar would also address what we've seen at the Planning Commission at a policy level many times recently about the commission wanting to impose a requirement for solar installations, but there being no city ordinance or code that would actually allow for that to be implemented on a case-by-case basis as opposed to a uniform application. So I think it will address a policy agenda that the city Planning Commission and also Open Space and Ecology have expressed interest in over time. Both of those bodies did review these changes and did endorse them. There were some minor changes and good additions suggested by OSEC, and they've been incorporated into the draft ordinance as well. Last thing I want to point out is that this ordinance does not propose any amendments to the city's green building ordinance. This has been an issue that's been studied over a council-appointed subcommittee of OSEC members and planning commissioners a couple of years ago when the last code update was taken into account. And there was a desire on the part of the subcommittee that was formed to look at lowering the threshold in terms of the smaller projects, making them subject to the green building ordinance. But when you do that, it got to be a real question of whether or not following the more rigorous state requirements versus the REACH codes like LEED or Build It Green would actually be an environmental benefit or a cost burden on some of these smaller projects. And that subcommittee at that point wasn't able to really reach a conclusion that it was a benefit for either environmental benefit or that it wouldn't be too cost prohibitive. And there's an iterative process. The state code gets more restrictive. The REACH codes then adjust to it, and it's really hard at any point in time to make a fair comparison in terms of how they really compare. Is it apples to apples type comparison? So at this point, we're not recommending any changes to the green building ordinance. It still apply to projects of the criteria and scale in the adopted ordinance, and the LEED silver requirement would still remain. So with that, staff's recommending the council introduce ordinance 613, and we have both the fire marshal and a building official here answer any questions on the technical issues tonight. That conclude my comments.
All right, any questions, Tara?
No questions.
All right. Lori? Madison?
I'm ready to open the public hearing.
Okay. Anyone from the public like to speak on this matter?
Motion to
Entertain a
close
motion.
public hearing.
Have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Council discussion?
Motion to introduce ordinance number 610, or 613. Amend Brisbane Municipal Code Title 15 by adopting the 2016 California Building Standards Codes with certain local modifications to the fire and energy codes and other related sections, and adopting the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Richard.
thank you, fellas. All right, new business. Consider approval of the request for a proposal for artists for the new library. Staff report, please.
Sure. So you have attached a proposed request for proposal for an artist for the new library. The anticipated dollar amount that would be generated by the public art ordinance would be about $30,000 based on the projected cost of the library. There was a committee meeting of a joint committee of the city council members and the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they suggested that we have, instead of just a $30,000 public art, we do a range from $30,000 to $50,000 to provide a greater opportunity for artists and to possibly get maybe multiple pieces of art that integrate with the library. The additional $20,000 would come from the Public Art Fund based on other projects that have already donated to the fund. There is a typo under the art opportunity. I somehow or another, when I was trying to do flora and fauna of San Bruno Mountain, I decided we only wanted the flora, not the fauna. So I apologize for that. So what I would do is change that to say the flora and fauna of San Bruno Mountain, which would include the butterflies, because we know that the butterflies are a very important aspect of our fauna, and not everybody always remembers that butterflies are part of that fauna. We are looking to have the timeline for this is a very quick turnaround, and the reason is we're trying to make sure that it coincides with the ability to have the project go out to bid in 2017. The amount of time it takes to build it after it goes out to bid is always in question based on what the weather looks like. But the sooner we can get an artist on board working with the architects to get the final design done, the better off we will be. So we are looking to have the RFP out on the California website tomorrow, and having the responses due January 6, 2017. And then if you notice from there, the turnaround from the point in time that we would get an artist proposals to the time we would try and bring this back to the city council, it's a very tight time frame.
Yes.
So that would be my
Sure.
conclusion
Okay.
of my remarks.
All right, so question?
Yeah, I do have a question because that's not that much time. So what if we don't have that many people apply, and then if we do get people apply and we don't like what they bring to the table, then what do we do?
The challenge would be if we don't get the types of artists that we would want to apply, I don't know if you would want to delay the actual building of the library until we get an artist on board. So I think that would limit the types of spaces that the art would be available for. Because what you'd have is a building already built, and if one of the things that we had talked about was maybe making a mosaic into the floor. It would be difficult to open a library and then tear out the floor
Yes.
and
Yeah,
do a
that-
mosaic, so you'd have more probably more statue art, or maybe art hung on the walls or something in the back. So
What
you'd
about
limit
from
the
the ceiling?
spaces. And, well, the ceiling would be maybe a difficult based on the weight of what the artwork would be versus what the ceiling was able to hold.
Okay. That's it for me.
Terry?
So, we're just looking for an artist and a concept, not a piece of art at this point.
That's correct.
And it seems a really quick turnaround to have someone come in and anticipate what we're looking for, whether, when we haven't given a specific, whether it's a floor mosaic or a sculpture or a painting, you know. Sorry. So it just seems very quick to get a national search with a response.
Well, you know, we got Kevin Fryer in the audience. You know, maybe Kevin
Come
might be able
on
to
up.
help out a little bit. Yeah. So why don't you come on up, Kevin?
Come on down.
Maybe you could help.
Well, yes, I can speak to this, and my name's Kevin Farr, for those who don't know me. And I wanted to just start by acknowledging that this is a first for the city of Brisbane, that the city of Brisbane is about to commission a piece of art for a public building.
Oh, we got Beth too. This is great.
And this is the end of a 4-year project that has been done, that's come out of Parks and Rec Commission. And I wanted to take this time to thank Karen Lentz, who was on that subcommittee with me, Bonnie Bologoff, who was on that subcommittee with me, Teresa Jimenez, who served for 2 years on that subcommittee, and also a shout out to Stuart, who was our staff person, who worked with us and challenged us and played devil's advocate and really made us work hard. It's a long process to get to this point, and I think it's a moment to celebrate. It's also the beginning of a new period of time, because we are starting now as a city through this public arts ordinance, to commission works of public art that will build a collection of them. This is in keeping, I believe this is in keeping with the values of our community, that values arts as an integral part of our community. We already express that through strong support for art education, through the parcel tax, which we have voted in 3 times, also through a great institution, Brisbane Dance Workshop. We also support this in terms of performing arts, and we have a great performing arts center. I like to think of it as a performing arts center with Mission Blue Center. And so now this begins starting a collection of public art. Now, to the proposal, the RFP that's on the table to you, I had 2 suggestions. One is that I think we're going to be dealing with visual artists, and there's not much visual for them to go on. The map on it, in fact, is all in black and white. I know there's a color version, if we can switch that out. But more importantly, is it possible to put links to, we must have artist renderings of, many artist renderings, architectural renderings of what this building is going to look like. Can we include links, or can we include as much of that as possible, so that the artist who is looking at this as a proposal can get a sense of what the environment looks like that they're going to create a proposal to put forward. And then the last bit, and I did want to speak about this very short window of time to have the proposal out. And I know that this pushes, there's a lot of moving parts to building this new library, and this library is on a timeline, and we want to be cautious about not gumming up the works, time this project, another aspect, the thing never gets built. However, we have 4 weeks across the Christmas holiday, and an artist doesn't, it's not like putting an RFP for a computer where they go to the shelf and they pull it off and say, here, we got it in time. An artist needs some time to think about it, to look at it, to study it, to sleep on it, to circle around it.
Get inspiration.
If we really want, at our first time out, to have a success, this really tight timeline seems to be handicapping it right from the beginning. I expect our first time out, we will make some mistakes. Hopefully none of them are major. I hope that what we have is a really good representation of what public art can be to our community the first time out. I hope we hit it out of the ballpark, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But we are handicapping, I believe we're handicapping ourselves if we make this that small of a period of time to put out a search. What possibly would result, would we get very few proposals back because people just say, I don't have time for it, none of which are really appealing, at which point we have to make the decision of we do nothing. We just leave public art out of the library. We take that money that's required for the building and put it in the ALUA fund and wait for another day when we can make our first public art purchase something that will be successful. But I do think that having this first piece of public art that the city commissions in this new public library would really be a great way to launch it. So that's my thoughts on that, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
What's your suggestion?
Well, I don't know how much time, and I know I do appreciate that there's a lot of moving parts to this. I think we should put it out straight away, but we need another month, and that pushes everything back another month, so that RFP is out there for 2 months, so that the deadline is in February. I think that would give us a better chance of success, and I know that puts pressure on other parts of this project, but I really do fear that people either just give it a skip, or it's such a short time that the artists who are considering it do propose things that are hurried and aren't going to give us the best results.
Lori?
Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. I think that's really good feedback. I was also concerned about the timeline being right over the winter break. So first question I had was, in addition to just posting it on the website, and so that potential artists can come to it, would the city be able to alert, and notify certain potential artists that we may know of, or that the designers may know of? Because I know that when I spoke at one of the workshops to, I believe it was Karen Payson, she mentioned, oh, you should check out this artist and you should check out that artist, and she gave me a couple names. I wrote them down, but I think it would be good, to be proactive and to contact those artists and say, we have an RFP, would you like to respond to it? That would be helpful. As to the timing, you say February. I was wondering if, how that would impact the timeline if we extended it at least until the end of January. Because in one memo, I think it says, because there's 2 library memos here. One of them, it says, September, I think, or by the end of 2018 that we expect to complete construction, but in another memo it says later. So if the end of 2018 is not realistic, then would adding an extra month or 2 to allow more artists, the artists more time to respond, would it really make a difference? And, would it be more beneficial to add that time, knowing that, we're not really going to hit that target at the end of 2018 anyway?
So
and then,
if I channel our public works director for that one, I think what he would say is the longer it takes to get an artist on board, the longer it will take to get the final design of the building done, which will mean it will take longer for us to put it out to bid. So if we take too long to find an artist, we will not be able to probably put it out to bid this year in 2017, not 2016, in order to get all the final drawings and everything. So we probably won't be able to sign a contract until 2018. So it would push that back, is the concern I think the public works director would say. And if that's acceptable to the council, that's,
okay. Well, I think at least extending it until the end of January makes sense, because if people are about to go on vacation, they're not going to come back by the beginning of January and be able to respond to this. I mean, people make plans at this time of year for travel, so I think that's realistic. And then just to respond to, I think it was Terry's comment about how does the artist know what to design if it's not really stated in here? And from our talks at the stakeholder committee level, my understanding was that there's this memo from Siegel and Strain, and it has here's some specific areas within the library that you could put something, and here's the parameters of the space, the dimensions. But it's left up to the artist intentionally to be vague so that they can then be creative in what they respond with and propose.
But I do think,
Right.
and of course I was in that meeting as well, and it is articulated in writing what the spaces are. But
Right.
for a visual artist to take that and translate that, then this is why I would also ask that as much artist renderings as we have available for what this new library will look like should be made accessible to anybody applying, because that's where they might read that thing and then they go, okay, where is that? But then they look at the picture, they go, oh, that's what it looks like. Now I can see XYZ in this space. Artists are visual people, not necessarily going to pull something out of just something that's written in dimensions. That's important.
Yeah.
That's going to be important when they come to sit down at the drawing board or whatever it is, to know exactly how big it is. But their inspiration is going to come from a visual cue, I would expect. So it's important that we add that to the RFP.
I think that's an excellent idea.
All right.
Any more questions for me?
Maybe later.
Okay.
I just want to hear from some members of the public. So, any other members of the public like to speak? Beth?
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth Grossman. Well, I want to second everything that Kevin said, just expressing gratitude for the 1% for the arts and all the support that we get in Brisbane for the arts. And we are embarking on a whole nother area, and it's new. And this is the world that I live in, and so I want to offer some suggestions and express some concerns. So when I read the RFP, basically if I would not know anything about what this was about, I would not really know where to begin as an artist. I had the great fortune of going to that meeting underneath the library to talk with all the architects and see the drawings and everything, so I could sort of have an idea, but I was trying to read it as if I was just somebody, because I know we're looking nationally or even internationally. So there's a couple of things. Okay, I second the thing on the timing. It's absolutely unrealistic. And that nobody's looking at RFPs right now. A lot of RFPs are due usually end of February. So when I'm looking to apply to things, I sort of get busy somewhere in the second week of January. And I consult, there's a whole series of lists. And so we also need time to get them posted on the lists that go into artists' email boxes like mine. And we comb through them and look at geographics and what we're interested in, what our qualifications are and what matches and that kind of thing. So if you want to get the word out, we have to get them into the list. Lori is what you're saying about approaching the architects for recommendations. That's okay to do, but it's not considered fair, especially if it's a city, if it's not posted in public lists.
Right.
So, yeah, so that would be something that I think we really need to sort of cover our asses and make sure that happens, so that and that there's fair lead time for everybody. Second thing is that usually in RFPs we're not expecting a proposal, like they're asking for qualifications, so they want to see pictures of previous projects that you've done and resumes and that kind of thing. It's not fair to ask an artist to design the project before, and usually what happens is with the RFP originally they ask for previous projects, resumes, possibly some kind of recommendations from other projects that we've worked on, and then they pick one or two people and commission them to design it. At that point, the artist goes into major research, would want to meet with the architects like we all got to under the library, get to really understand the design, find out what is expected, what kind of spaces they'd be dealing with, think about budgets, materials, and that kind of thing. So I just really want to underline, it's not fair to ask an artist to do a design like that. Secondly, I also noticed that in the RFP that there was sort of a suggestion about the star theme, and I just think that the star theme is so overdone in this town. It'd be really nice to like sort of open it up to do something really different, especially if and for me, like when I was looking at it, oh, if I was an artist, I'm like, well, they want a star theme, so I would feel like I have to throw some stars in it. And so rather than really giving an artist an opportunity to explore a space, work with the architect. This is one of the things that I said too early on, is that if we're going to be dealing with public art and we don't want it to look like plop art, we have to make sure that the artist gets to work with the architect right from the very beginning. So we're kind of late. I know that all of this sort of happened because we just passed them 1% for the arts not that long ago, so I understand how this kind of thing happens, but this will be also like in terms of we should start thinking about what are we learning from this process, and that's one of them, is that right from the beginning when the project starts, the artist needs to be on board and in those meetings. And then my other concern is that I noticed that the committee to choose the artists consisted of council members and people from the planning commission and Parks and Rec Commission, I mean, and I highly suggest that we have at least 2 people on that jury that actually are specialists in the field of public art. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions too, if you have any. Consider me a resource.
I have a question. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Kevin. My question is more of, what do you think if we now delayed it, and instead of having art incorporated in the building, it's done separate, like courtyard or pictures or something different, where it's not necessarily part of the building per se, that it needs to be incorporated? Because hearing this, it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies that okay, we're too late, but maybe we, look at it differently now. Switch it around and do the more outside art, the statue things, or the murals, or, whatever, and I'm not an artsy type person, so I don't,
Yeah.
I really lack in that, but I'm just asking you, and Kevin, you can chime in on that also, that being both of you are artists, so, what do you think if we just kind of table this for right now and maybe, or extended it out and did it differently? Because you're right, an artist is going to need to see some kind of conceptual plan of what it is, and the 75% is not even going to be ready until April.
And I understand the pragmatic solution that you're looking for. It has been our position from the very beginning that the best public art, the most successful public art, is art that's integral to the design of the library. And this is something, that we've had to, and I'm assuming Beth is going to second the motion here momentarily. It could be that art as an afterthought could be successful. I think it's a much more difficult needle to thread, and public art is a difficult needle to thread in the best of circumstances. But I certainly would like, certainly in the ideal world, our first time out, to set that precedent that art is integral to the design, that we bring an artist on board as early in the process as possible, is certainly our intention and has been our focus as we've gone through this process of studying what public art is about. So, unless you disagree, or
I think that would be the ideal way, but I also understand the concerns about delaying the whole project. So, we have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that. It wouldn't be the first time that art was just placed in a building after it was built. Like Kevin said, usually it can look like what I call plop art or an afterthought or whatever, or depending on the artist and how skilled they are. And, there are people that can go like, well, this isn't exactly the ideal thing, but I'll make something work. And sometimes having those kinds of, barriers and boundaries can be, an integral part of the creative process. So it's not an impossible thing. It's just not ideal. And like Kevin said,
that's why I'm asking the questions.
Yeah, because there's a lot of situations just like where they do a renovation or they say like, oh, gee, we built this building and we've had it like this for a while, and it'd be really nice to have some kind of piece of art there. But it tends to look like an afterthought. And ideally, it'd be great for the artist to work with architects. So I guess what I would suggest is pushing out the deadline for the RFP and making sure that it gets on all the lists. I can give you some suggestions and, and of some of the lists I look at, but there's so many of them. And did we want to open it to international? Is
National.
that national? Okay.
Yeah.
And I can also put the word out in my circles as well, and we can ask the architects to do that. And then, so I guess I would sort of go ahead with it, but push the date of the RFP out, and then, again, you're going to need to make a decision about, I think to be fair to artists, would be to choose two of them that you like based on their previous work, and then commission them to do a proposal. And usually the commission is, oh no, this is kind of tricky because I think it's a $30,000 budget, right?
30 to 50.
30 to 50, yeah. So usually when you commission an artist to do a budget, depending on how big the job is, it's at least $2,000 for the proposal. And normal would be $5,000, but now we're cutting our way into the budget. So, but you can understand asking the artist to do the work on
Yeah,
spec.
we did that with the architect too, so all those people that start with the letter A seem to get their money up front, so I'm just kidding. Architects, no.
Yeah. So,
So,
Getting late.
yeah, so, you wanna have, some council discussion on this?
Yeah, thank you, Beth.
if there's any
Thank
other
you, Beth.
questions, feel free.
Yeah, so, hearing, I'm good with pushing it out a month, until February for the RFP.
So February 1st or the end of February, is that?
I think I heard a month, is that right? I mean,
Well, that would be the beginning of February.
like at the beginning of February.
Beginning of February?
I think they said the end of February.
Can I ask a question? So don't our architects have most of the building designed at this point, with an artist sketch of what the structure is going to look like and what the textures are going to be? And so I think that on our RFP, we're giving so many different options of where they could put it. Maybe we need to make a decision if we want the statement piece to be, the artist piece to be in the courtyard, or, as an entry piece, and give, because that way the artist would have an idea of what space we've already designed. They're not going to be changing the design of the building particularly, because that's pretty much on the paper right now.
So,
Yes.
what we're thinking is like something that's, if there was a mosaic in the floor, that wouldn't really necessarily change a whole lot, right? Or if it was hanging from the ceiling, that might be a little bit of a tweak, but I think that you can still have something that's integrated within the building and looks like it was a thought process that was together even at this stage, I think. But I would hate to say, oh, we want just look at this space, because we could be limiting ourselves to different types of artists. So if we said, oh, let's only do something in the courtyard, you might get people who are really specialized in sculptures and things like that. And maybe somebody who is an amazing mosaic artist might not come, or somebody who could do this really cool sculpture from the ceiling, or, I just don't want us to limit ourselves. And I think like the whole point, like Beth said, is to get people to apply, and then you review what they're good at, and then you work together to come up with something. And I think you're kind of inspired by each other. You see their work and you come up with really cool ideas, and they meet the architect and they look at the space and then they're inspired. But it's really hard to say, hey, here's the one space we've chosen, and give us your plan, and then we'll decide who we like, because I don't think the creative process really works that way. So I don't want to limit ourselves too much and then not be able to really attract a great artist that we wouldn't get if it was a different type of space. If we open it up, we can get all different kinds of people and different talents.
And also, yeah, I agree with what Madison's saying, and the point of of having the range, it was originally 30,000, we increased it to 30 to 50, so that it would allow, an artist to think about not just putting art in one space, but maybe in the courtyard and also in the entranceway, to break it up, and spread the art around. And so that's one of the reasons why we're not restricting it to one specific area. My sense is, or I agree with the recommendation from Kevin and Beth to extend it at least until the end of January or February, if they, depending on what is realistic. And, I actually, we talked about the idea of having them give, some specific, like we did with the library designers, to commission basically, some ideas. But, you're right, it does cut into the budget. So, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other on that, but I see the benefit of having, to commission, because then we're paying them, to create something. It's not fair if they create something and we don't pay them for it, and, we decide, oh, we like that, it's their idea. So they have a right to get paid for it.
I think we can gather someone's style that we like and then work with them after that based on their photos of previous work.
Can I try this? Can I just make a motion to approve this, to extend the timeline out to February 8th, which is the Park and Rec Commission recommends artists to council, but to extend the deadline for the RFP to February 8th, and then we can kind of decide a little bit later about, whether to, pay the $2,000 or $5,000 for the concept of two artists, to boil it down or whatever,
Well, can we though? Because it's going to go out right after this meeting tomorrow, I suppose, the RFP.
Well, I think you're getting a concept or a P, right? I don't know.
You're saying once we get the information.
Yeah, I think, Clark's going is fine. The recommendation is to have the February 8th deadline. That works. I hear what you're saying, Terry, about, the architects. I mean, they've, to me, they're artists, and they've designed a beautiful building. Here we're having those little fine touches of an artist coming in, and so, I think their recommendations. They know a lot of artists. I think who work with these types of spaces. Their help is going to be tremendous. But I also agree with Beth that you want to be fair, and you want to cast that net as wide as feasible.
Yeah, because
So-
architects don't deal with abstract.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the Park and Rec Commission is doing a good job with moving this forward. I think potentially having some folks. Don't we already have some members of the public who have been participating in the meetings, Clay or Stuart?
And this is, the city council voted, the temporary implementation guidelines are that it's the subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation and subcommittee of the council. When we get to the full implementation guidelines, the recommendation will be that there will be members of the public as well as people who have artistic backgrounds. But until we get the full implementation guidelines, which I think are going before the Parks and Recreation Commission on a draft this month.
Yeah, so this particular decision-making process has fallen between the ordinance itself, which has triggered it, and the second half of the equation, which is the implementation guidelines. And where that is at, we've worked on that for the last 2 years. It goes for its first full reading at our next commission meeting, which is next week, and then that commission, the rest of the commissioners will give their input, read it, give us feedback, and then our plan is to take it back to subcommittee and invite members from the business community and also from the arts community to do the same thing, to read it in advance and then come to that subcommittee meeting and help us vet it.
Okay.
And then by that time we'll be ready to give it up to you. So it'll come to you February, March, something like that,
Okay.
I expect, if everything.
So
stays
we
on
got
track.
something in motion.
Yeah, but so in the meantime, questions about this public arts has been handled by this ad hoc committee, which was put in place, as Stuart commented, at sometime in April.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Beth.
I wanted to ask if there was plans in the library, architecture for temporary art exhibits too, because that also should be considered when we're thinking about the permanent public art and how.
They are. They've put. I've seen part of their recommendations and to put art on the walls. I mean, the way that they're designing the library is to incorporate art and historical stuff too.
Okay, because when I talked with the architects about it, it was kind of vague at the time. So has it moved forward since we had the meeting over by the library? Because it seemed very nebulous, and I just think that that's just an important thing that we should be clear about when we're starting to commission, to make sure that we have room or are clear about what we want for temporary art exhibits. Because
Okay.
I think that that provides lots of opportunities for artists from the whole Bay Area and for things to change and for it to be more interesting.
Definitely. I'm sure we will incorporate that.
Okay.
Yes.
Just double check with the architect.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Clark, you have a motion.
Yes, I made a motion to approve the RFP, go out with the RFP with the extension, extending the RFP return to February 8th.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So
We're
I know
making the
it's.
adjustments, right, about not having them actually create a proposal, but gathering that proposal once we have narrowed it down to a couple people that we like. Because RFP right now asks for a
Time and
proposal.
costs, and so are we taking, I guess I shouldn't have agreed so quick. We're just expending the time,
Yeah.
extending the time, but not authorizing doing it.
Exactly. I'll let them decide. I mean, they've been working on it in the Park and Rec subcommittee.
Well, because we need to amend the language in this, because the instructions say, come back with what you're planning to do. And Beth is saying that's not fair, because first of all, the timeline is short, and also to ask an artist to come up with that without being compensated. You first pick like a resume, right? You pick who you like, and then you ask them to bring a proposal, correct?
But I think it says, if you look on the last page of this, it says number 4 statement, it has it asks for a conceptual basis of the proposed work and initial impressions of what their projected approach would be. So I think it's, and they can supply additional visual support, but it's not like they're supposed to be providing a plan. It's a conceptual, it's a very, initial conceptual plan.
Is that normal, Beth?
I read it and I thought I could look at it again.
So, I mean, just to let you know that this RFP is based off of the model RFP from the Americans for the Arts, as well as 2 or 3 RFPs that I saw from other cities.
Okay.
So this isn't,
All right.
and as you said, it's a preliminary concept statement, and then it says include initial drawings or representations. So we're
How
not
about
looking
this?
for a full-fledged concept at this point.
We approved the timeline, we approved the RFP, and you guys figure out the language of what you want.
Yeah, that's how I figure it. Yeah. They're.
Yeah,
I think what they've got here
go
is
for
fine.
it.
I'm fine with it.
All right. So, it is 10:47. You're not coughing, Terry.
Oh, yes, I am.
Motion to extend the meeting to 11:10.
Okay. Do I have a second?
To 11 what?
10.
Okay.
We'll get through it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's move quick. Okay. Item B, consider adoption of resolution 2016-44 to update the hourly pay scale to ensure all classifications meet the minimum wage requirement effective January 1st, 2017. Stuart?
Motion to approve resolution number 2016-44.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
That's
C,
mandated to do.
consider withdrawal from San Mateo County Telecommunications Authority to SAMCAT.
Make a motion to approve item C.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, good. Let's see, item D, consider approval of the fundraising strategy for the new Brisbane Library. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Before you is a strategy for fundraising for the new library. Seems to be the topic right now that we're talking just about the following next year. 2017 would be a year that we would want to kick off fundraising efforts. There's been $300,000 identified as the amount which is believed to be likely to be raised by donations to help fund the new library. City staff has met with the Friends of the Brisbane Library at their September meeting to discuss the idea of the Friends being the face of the fundraising effort. Subsequently, staff has been in communication with members of the Friends, the Brisbane Chamber, as well as county library staff to fine-tune a strategy for the new library. It's expected to break ground sometime in 2018. So this leaves all of 2017 and possibly some of 2018 for fundraising efforts. But given the lofty goal and how it is a higher amount than what we did for the skate park and the community playground, that fundraising would be treated differently, that we wouldn't have like a hard stop to raising funds for the library, but that it would be an ongoing effort. The Brisbane business community has always been very generous when it comes to community fundraising and understand the value of retrofitting city-owned property. And so therefore, we're going to, as part of the strategy, you've all seen the layout of the proposed library and how there's different areas and spaces in there. And it was thought that there would be the opportunity to, given the fundraising goal and the amount of different areas, that there could be names attributed to the different areas, such as the Marketplace and Discovery area, the Quiet Seating, Teen, Historic Archive, Children's area, the Courtyard, as was just discussed, the Children's Garden, Community Room, the Maker Space, and there's a few fixed outdoor benches as well as outdoor tables and a rainwater cistern. So we're just labeling or listing out all the things that could possibly have some type of plaque or donor recognition affixed to it if there is a donor or business that is able to give to a certain amount. We are thinking that the range for these types of spaces would be between $20,000 and $50,000, and for something like a donor bench would be more so in line with the $2,500 to $5,000 donation. And also part of the strategy would be, if in talking with the chamber president, Mitch Bull is here with us, that to make it more palatable for a business to be able to make that type of donation of $20,000 to $50,000, to have that be an option that they could make it over a course of a number of years. And this is something that we haven't considered before, but given the goal, and that was something that was brought to light. And another area is employer matching programs that we'd want to explore more. The Live at Mission Blue series has had success from some regional companies with employer matching programs. And Kevin Fryer is here, that he can speak to that if desired. And also leveraging business advertising. As mentioned, the Chamber and the business community has been very generous in their fundraising donations, in the past, and the Luminary is willing to advertise in their newsletter, the monthly newsletter, as well as in the back page of the Live at Mission Blue program would be another avenue, as well as county library staff has acquired different, like a vinyl label maker, and putting together a banner outside the library site. The current library site was something that their staff suggested, as well as the city engineer has said that there's going to be a pictorially representation of the new library as seen from visitation at the new site. And at that site, it could be where we have a thermometer. We've never actually done a fundraising thermometer, but that would be something to consider to give the community an idea of how much is being raised. And also have an electronic thermometer on the Friends website. As far as donations from families and individuals, we all know that if a family member or individual is passionate about a project, they most of the time love to have their name attributed. So something that would still grow as donations came in and we could add to it over a course of time. So similar to the donor brick, the boulder for the Volunteer of the Year outside City Hall has a plaque added every year with the name of the Volunteer of the Year. So there could be a donor wall in the library with like a butterfly or tree of life kind of design with the leaves with the different donors that could be removed and put back as different names are engraved. And donations made online, we haven't done that before for the skate park or the playground, but the Friends of the Brisbane Library already have that mechanism to accept donations on their website. And in talking with Kevin Fryer again about the Live at Mission Blue series, half of the ticket sales are through online sales, so we wanted to make sure we leverage the ability for people to give online as well. And as far as the timeline, I mentioned that fundraising could start as soon as the mechanisms are in place. So we're thinking early 2017 to start advertising and promoting the efforts of the Friends and have that be ongoing through the year, and that the bulk of the fundraising efforts would be raised in 2017 before the library breaks ground in 2018. So with that, of course, we'll use all of the city's communication channels to advertise this as well, far and wide. Take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Caroline. All right, any questions for Caroline? Terry?
I'm sorry, I'll try to be quick. With the new naming rights, we could have the Sierra Point Lumber Room, and it's okay that we're going to be naming things after a business, or we would have restrictions on that from a donor.
We didn't talk about any restrictions as far as if they wanted to have their business name, that would be a part of the, I guess, appeal to donate a certain threshold, we were thinking.
But under the new naming rights that were adopted in 2016?
That applies to parks and recreational facilities, not the library, is that correct?
Correct.
Oh, yes. The asterisk, the item that was on your agenda on November 3rd applied to parks, recreational facilities, or areas. So the Brisbane Library is not considered one of those.
So we have no guidelines for what naming rights would be for donations
Correct.
in place.
Yeah, not at this time, but we could come up with some guidelines. Any other questions for Caroline?
No. I hear what you're saying, Terry, you know. It's like,
It worries me.
some big money corporation come in and say, UPC Library,
Well, well,
or
you know,
something, you know.
yeah.
The donations, we talked about this actually in the subcommittee, and the donations would be made to Friends of the Brisbane, or it would be Friends of the Brisbane Library that would be collecting the donations. They wouldn't be made to the city. Is that correct? So it would be,
That's correct. And I know the hour is very late, so we may want to actually, I think if you felt comfortable approving this in concept, and if you have a concern about naming rights, then we're going to need to air that out sooner than later, because when people go out to get donations and they're talking to people, if we're not gonna allow them to put their name on the room, then, you know, we need to know that, because that's gonna be a key component in this.
Well,
And I understand the concern.
and I've been in many public spaces that have very low-key, you know, names on rooms that you wouldn't even notice, or wings on hospitals. But I haven't seen what that would be, or what.
It just
What
needs
would-
to be
what we-
vetted more,
it
is what you're
needs to be
saying,
vetted,
Deb.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I agree. Let's just do it in concept.
concept?
I agree with it. So, there's a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Okay, staff report, city manager's report on upcoming activities.
Nothing.
Right, good, thank you, Clay.
Good report.
Love it.
All right, under mayor council matters, item A, election of a new mayor and mayor pro tem. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem Lori Liu as our new mayor for the 2017 upcoming year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Clark Conway as our 2017 Mayor Pro Tem.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Tonight, we are swearing in our newly elected Mayor Pro Tem, Clark Conway.
Clark Conway,
I, W. Clark Conway,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to
that
the
I will bear
Constitution,
true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States,
to the Constitution of the United States and to the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
The
the
duties-
duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Spoken like a pro.
Thank you for respecting the time constraints we have, Clark. Appreciate that. All right. Item C, City Council meeting scheduled for 2017. It's right here. Anybody have any issues with it?
I'm gonna be gone the second, but that, you guys all know that, of February, so.
Okay, that's our regular meeting.
Yeah.
Madison is gone.
Mr. Mayor, just, and we don't need any decision tonight, but if you could think about the field trip and whether you're going to be available so that you can let staff, Ingrid, know, because we do need to make accommodations. So that's set for the 21st of January, and it will be in the morning into the early afternoon. If you're able to make it, great, just let us know, and if not, you could also let us know.
Okay, definitely do that.
I have a couple comments. So April 20th, I think I mentioned that I'll be on spring break. I don't know why the June 15th, that's highlighted? I guess that wasn't in the original schedule for the Baylands hearings? Okay, and then I noticed, I looked through the calendar, and there's a couple of dates that appear to be Fridays, which should be Thursdays. September 1st, 15th, and December 1st and 15th. So you should take a double check of the calendar to make sure those are the correct dates. I think I was looking at 2017, but just double check.
Okay.
And just so you know, I will be there on the 21st. I'll be
Oh, so that should be a 7th, September 7th. And
you looking at the calendar.
Oh, sorry.
December 7th.
Yeah, I'll be
Pearl Harbor Day.
All right, so you'll bring this back before the council at our next meeting, and,
Yeah, I'm
We'll
sure
need
it'll
to-
change.
and we'll need to, come up with some dates for, that Baylands, hearing in April.
Right.
Okay. All right, discuss city selection committee appointments. All right, so Laura, you're gonna be at the Council of Cities dinner?
Yes.
Alma? Okay, so you'll be our representative. Okay, so,
Can we work backwards on the list? I think everybody that's singular there, we're gonna vote for him, I assume.
okay, yeah,
And then number 8, which is the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. We
yes.
suggest Maureen Frechette, unless anybody has any.
Yeah, I spoke with her. She reached out to me, and
Hold on, I need to.
she said that she took over Terry Nagel's position just 1 year ago, and she's interested in continuing to serve.
Yeah,
She reached out to me also.
I spoke with her as well.
Okay. So Maureen's the person, all right. All right,
And the other,
and then,
there's 2 others.
let's see, item number 4. Okay, so we got Doug Kim, who came before us tonight, and Pradeep Gupta. It's, council's pleasure.
That's pretty interesting. I'm assuming Doug's new, but he really seems to know his stuff here.
He's,
New on the council, but not new at air quality.
Yeah.
yeah, and he reached out to me also. We talked
Yeah.
quite a bit about the issues. I'm happy to vote, support him.
Me
All
too.
right, and I just, let you know that Pradeep Gupta had reached out to me, prior to me knowing that Doug was running, and I think both of them would be good. I had told Pradeep that I would support him, but of course, I'm one vote on the council, so,
Yeah, I think they're both good candidates. I think the fact that Doug came here tonight and has extensive experience in that particular technical field, and that he's willing to offer his, services to lobby on our behalf, and in addition to just the technical advice. I think
More
that
of a
shows his
staff person,
dedication.
but, it's,
Yeah,
okay, so
so we'll
that
put
sounds like
Doug.
Doug's the guy.
Okay.
All right, item 3, that is the ABAG position. So we got 3 Oaks, Rick Bonilla from San Mateo, Wayne Lee from Millbrae, Carlos Romero from East Palo Alto.
I don't know Rick. I do know Wayne, and I do know Carlos, actually.
Mm-hmm.
My vote's for Wayne.
Carlos, I knew him from, he was on the East Palo Alto City Council, did 1 term. I know he did 1 term as mayor and ran for, county supervisor,
Yeah,
which, he didn't win. That was in 2012, but he chose not to run again for, East Palo Alto, and then last year he was, appointed to the city council. And he's a sharp guy, and an avid bicyclist, but I don't know what his long-term commitment, given from his track record, it really is. So,
yes.
but I like him as, and Wayne. I think we all know Wayne.
Yeah, I like Carlos too, and I like Rick as well. But Wayne did reach out to me. We talked about the importance of having fair and proper housing allocations, and he is very respectful of that. And we need an advocate who is going to make sure that we don't get hammered with more housing than what is a fair distribution. So I would go with Wayne as well.
Yeah, Wayne reached out to me, and he was the only one for this position who, I think that says a lot. If you're willing to take that time to look up everyone's phone number, give them a call, and be ready to talk about the issues and have a conversation, that to me tells me that you are really committed and you're putting in that work from the start. And so to me, that makes somebody stand out. So that's who I'm going for.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah, and I agree.
good with that?
Yeah, and he said in his letter that he's very mindful of the housing element, the need for cities to look at what their needs are. So.
Terry, you good with it?
Oh, yeah, all right.
Okay, so item E is countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. I think we can save those for the next meeting. Written communications, I did receive some letters here, one from Universal Paragon. We have one from Tony Barrios, actually two from Tony Barrios. One regarding terms, council terms, and the other one was regarding the smoking ordinance. And you talked about the letter that came from Dana Delworth. And we had one from Peter and Connie regarding terms, spoke tonight. And we also had one from Marianne McGuire Hickey, also regarding the council term allotment. So, with that, oral communications number 2. Anyone out there want to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda? Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, I'll take a second.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good job.